Hi guys, so today I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the number one question that I get from most people, which is the difference between microblading and powder brows and who is a candidate for each one. So first let's talk about really quickly the difference between the two. Let's talk about microblading first. Microblading is the process where we take a tiny little micro needle and we actually cut in small little hair strokes into the brow area, and then we implement ink into those little cuts that we put in. This process is a complete manual process. There's no machine involved. It's all done by hand. And this process gives you a very natural brow. This is ideal for people who wear no makeup and really want that really natural finish so that their brows don't look different from the rest of their face if they never wear makeup. The second process or procedure type, it would be a powder brow. Powder brows is the process where we actually take a machine and we actually flick and layer ink across the surface of the skin. And we do the flicking and layering versus the traditional tattoo drawing in order to create a soft layered finish. Typically the pictures you see online are immediately after a procedure that is much darker than the process actually ends up healing out. The process usually ends up healing out about 30 to 40% lighter and softer than what you see in most pictures. But powder brows is definitely machine shading. We use a small little needle that we flick across the layer of the skin. It's very painless. I have a lot of people who snore through the procedure or don't even know sometimes that I've started, or one of the big things I get is it feels like you're plucking my brows. So that's what that process feels like. However, on both procedures, I always numb my clients. I want y'all to be comfortable. I want you to be able to just relax. That helps my work to be better. And obviously, I would never want any of y'all to experience any pain, obviously. So we definitely numb for all procedure types, but powder brows is definitely very little pain. I have a lot of people who are like, I don't even need it. So going back to a hybrid brow or a combo brow, that is a combination between the two procedures. It's basically where we take and we do microblading. Usually when we do that, we separate the strokes a little bit further apart if we're going to shade so that things don't blur together. And then we basically take a machine afterwards and we do lightly powder over it in order to kind of clean up the look and just beef up the brows and maybe even fill in areas where you have a lot of hair in one area but very little in the other. So when we microblade, you can still see the skin. You don't have all the shading and the shadowing from hairs in another area. So in order to make them look more uniform, you might need shading in an area that has less hair in it in order for it to have the same shadows as another part of your brow. So that's another reason for a combo brow or a hybrid brow. So let's talk about who's a candidate for each, okay? So a big misconception is that anyone can have microblading, and unfortunately, as much as it's my favorite process to have and my favorite process to do, maybe not my favorite process to do, I actually like all of them because I like the creativity that goes along with creating a different brow for every person. But the difference is that not very many people actually are candidates for microblading. And if you fall into any of these skin types or things that we talk about and someone tells you you are a candidate, you might want to be wary because you may not get the results that you're actually truly looking for. And I always want my clients to have realistic expectations and have results that actually are going to last. I want you to leave here looking more beautiful and not leaving more self-conscious because you made a bad decision. It is your face, and so we want to make sure that we're obviously doing something that's going to beautify what you already have. And so microblading. So microblading, best candidates for microblading are dry skin, dry or normal skin, we'll say dry or normal skin, and normal pore size, normal to smaller pore sizes. The reason for that is that microblading, when we're doing that process of actually cutting in a stroke and implementing ink, if you have oily skin, what'll happen is that oil will get in there and it'll actually blur out the stroke, and then you won't actually have a nice pretty crisp line. Additional to that, if you have larger pores, what happens is that as you're cutting that stroke, you may be cutting through portions or parts of larger pores, and that ink can leak out into those pores and again not create a nice crisp clean line. So if you have oilier skin or larger pores, unfortunately, you're just not a really great candidate for microblading. If you tend to fall in the middle with maybe a combo brow and you tend to be generally not overly oily in your T-zone area, then you might be more of a candidate for what's called a combination brow. The combo or hybrid brow, what we would do is, again, take those microbladed strokes, spread them further apart so that if there is any slight blurring or any lack of crispness, we would be able to go in behind that and not lack of crispness, because we don't want that. Once you cut in those strokes, we would spread them a little bit further apart and then shade in between all of those strokes in order to just give you a nice clean finish, but still allow you to have some of those strokes, especially if you have areas where maybe you have no hair at all and you really still want it to all flow and look natural. So then the last procedure type would be the powder brow. Every single person is a candidate for a powder brow. So even people with dry, normal skin or combination skin are candidates for powder brows. And the reason that a lot of people that maybe have dry or normal skin want to do powder brows is because they wear makeup every day and they want a more polished or more finished look. And so those people could still come over and do an actual powder brow. But if you have oily skin, if you have larger pores, the best procedure for you technically would be a powder brow. You'll get the best long-term results for the amount of money that you're going to spend in order to put something on your face. Obviously, it is on your face. We kind of already talked about that. So we want to make sure that you have long-term, beautiful results. And so the way to get the most consistent results would be to choose to go with a powder brow. And if you're only lightly oily, then maybe a combo brow or the hybrid brow. Big misconception with powder brows is that they're drawn on and very dark and heavy, but because of that flicking layering process that we do, they actually heal much softer and more natural than what most people believe. Additional to that, you can actually take a powder brow, and it is a layering process, so we actually go across that brow several times. So if you're really looking for a natural brow, but you have oily skin and you're not a candidate for microblading, what we can do is not go across the brow as many times so that you get a lighter, softer look. If you're looking for a more dramatic brow, then we just go over that brow multiple times. And so the powder brow can actually be customized for a lighter, softer, or a darker, more dramatic look, just based on what look you're specifically going for. Additional to that, mature skin. As we get older, our skin tends to age. And powder brows is a less traumatic on the skin. And as your skin ages and thins, it makes it much harder to put strokes in at the proper depth and level so that they don't gray out, which you've probably seen in other people's permanent makeup. They don't turn gray and they don't blur and get nasty or look very Sharpied on, because we put them so deep in the skin they look like a traditional drawn on Sharpie tattoo. So if you are aging past a certain age, 50, 60, sometimes depending on your skin and how well it is in those 50s, we can possibly get away with a combination brow, but at a certain age, it just becomes more conducive to getting better quality results that are going to last longer to do a powder brow. And so if you have any questions whatsoever in reference to which procedure type that you're a better candidate for, or if you really are dead set that you want a specific brow type and you're a little bit nervous, feel free to message me a picture. Let's talk about it. Maybe even come in and see me, schedule a time. I do have to book a time because I always have clients in here and I can't just stop and chat with you, but book a time with me and I'll even bring you in on my lunch hour and you can have lunch with me or whatever, and we can talk about it. You can send me pictures and we will talk about basically what process is most beneficial for you. If you're really nervous because you're not a candidate for microblading and you really want microblading, send me a picture. Maybe I can send you some pictures of some people that are similar in your hair color and your complexion that have had powder brow, so you can actually see what that would end up looking like after you get it, so that you could visualize that on you. Then let me know. But just shoot me a message or send me a text or shoot me a phone call, 830-660-9060. And if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Hope you ladies are having a blessed day.